welcome everyone. This is David DiNapoli, president of the Pontifical University, the Holy Cross Foundation, here with Sister Mary Katerina. And we're going to be talking today a little bit about her experience at Santa Croce. It's wonderful to meet and be with our alumni and talk to them a little bit about their experience at Santa Croce, because above all, the student experience is a big piece of a university's world. So welcome, Sister Mary. Can you
Thank
tell us
you.
a little bit just about your journey, how you ended up in Santa Croce and what you're doing now?
Well, let's see how I ended up at Santa Croce. I actually was assigned to Rome in 2005, and I was not expecting to go to school. And so it just kind of happened that I guess I had expressed some interest at one point while I was there.
Mm,
And so one of the sisters had said, "Well, go try it out. Go and talk to some of the universities and see what their programs are like." And so then somebody said, "Well, why don't you go to Santa Croce, see what it's like over there?" So I went and I met with Father Lavastida,
okay.
and he was there at the time, and he was so kind and just warm, and I thought, I like this place. And so that's how I ended up there.
Oh, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And tell us a little bit about the work you're doing now. What year, and also what year you graduated from Santa Cruz?
I got my doctorate in 2015. So I
Okay.
defended in 2014.
Wow.
And then I actually went to Denver myself. I was teaching at the seminary in
Oh,
Denver just for maybe a year and a half, a couple of years. And then I got transferred here.
oh, wow.
So when I was here, I started out teaching. There is a small Catholic university here called Benedictine, and it's not the Benedictine that's in Atchison. It's Benedictine. The main campus is in Lisle, Illinois,
Okay.
and so it's not well known. And they were just getting started here. So I took the job. So it was a great experience in terms of learning how to teach young people that are not seminarians, that are coming out of the culture that we have, which is like really awful, and trying to teach philosophy, which
Mm,
they'd never heard. And it's like, what is this? And I really don't care, and all that.
yeah.
So it was a great experience. And then there came a point where I decided it was time for me to look somewhere else
Mm,
for a position. And just at that time, the diocese here made an announcement that they were opening a new seminary
mm.
and they were beginning their philosophy section. And I thought, okay, the Lord is saying something to me here. So I just sent an email. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm teaching at the seminary. So
Wow.
just finished our first year of the first group of men going through.
Yes, and Monsignor Shea it was a big part of starting that new seminary. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
correct?
it's under Mary College. They're in charge of the curriculum for the academic part of the seminary.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah,
Mm.
he. I had an experience to meet him and spend a little time with him
Oh,
in Phoenix when I was there for the University of Mary Theology of Gift Conference, and
oh,
it really
beautiful.
is. They have a great program up there for development people, and at the U Mary, and the conference. Their theology of gift was really a wonderful conference. I really enjoyed my time there, and was able to really sort of dive deeper into how philanthropy can support um, you
Yeah,
know our faith
yeah.
growth and that kind of
Were you
thing.
here in the spring this year?
Hmm.
It's so beautiful, and this is a lovely time to be in Phoenix. It's just gorgeous in the winter. Makes everything worth it. Don't
Yeah,
ever come in the summer.
I know. In Phoenix, I was like, as we're driving around, it was a little bit like some of the buildings were melting into the ground. It's like you can tell that it's very hot there during the summer.
It does get a little warm in the summer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's wonderful. It's great. Yeah, you mentioned teaching up here in Denver. I guess Father Daniel Leonard was probably the rector at the time.
Actually, it was before his time, just
Okay.
before he came on. So I was there. I actually first came after I had finished my license. So I studied, I got my license at CUA, and I came in 2004 to Denver just to see if that was what I wanted to do, was to teach.
Mm, okay.
So we had several of our sisters were there, and they were teaching. And so I had a wonderful experience. The rector at the time was Monsignor Michael Glenn,
Oh
a
wow.
beautiful, beautiful rector. He was
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
And so that I had that experience. And then when
Mm,
I came back in 2012, so I wasn't quite finished with the dissertation. But I thought I can't work from Rome because it's so noisy. I thought I
mm,
have to be able to focus, you know. And so I went back to Denver, and at that time, Monsignor Trainer, Father Trainer, was there.
mm.
So I was
Okay.
that's when I finished was under him.
Yeah, I got to know a little bit about Monsignor Glenn when I was at the seminary.
Well, that's
Monsignor
great.
Glenn's story, was a really incredible one, and just how he became more selfless and more loving as he was, dying of
Yeah,
brain cancer in the end there.
yeah.
So,
It
um,
was amazing to watch him during that time because I was still there, and he was back and forth. He would come back to serve as a priest. You know,
mm,
even he was in the middle of his chemo or what all
mhm,
the things that he was going through,
yeah,
and he so wanted to just serve as a parish priest.
mm,
You know, so yeah, as you're saying, that self-giving, he was really an amazing person.
yeah, yeah. And now I don't know if you heard, but Monsignor or Father Angel Perez Lopez was
I
named the rector.
did.
Yeah,
I
another
did.
another Santa Croce grad. So it's a really
Yeah.
we're
So
we're
so
taking over a little bit.
so we were there together. Father Angel was doing his doctorate at the time. I
Okay.
went to his defense, and it was one of those things that was like, unheard of. Okay, there were like two questions, and that was it, because
Wow.
they loved what he did, you
Oh, that's
know.
awesome.
And then he did his. I think he had a second. I don't know if it was a master's doctorate or what it was after that. He went into did something in moral theology.
Mm.
So it was just I just thought, wow, there's nobody better to be rector.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I'm really excited. I got to know him a little bit too when I was working at the Archdiocese, and he's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
really excited to have him as rector.
That's
Um,
great.
Great. So tell me a little bit about the first thing that stood out to you when you arrived at Santa Croce.
I think it was really the warmth of the people there. Um, and the students, like just the it really was a sense of belonging to a family in a way.
Mm,
It was a lovely thing to be. It wasn't like students were saying, I've got to, I mean, you have to do your assignments and, turn in all your assignments, all your papers. Um, but there was also a wonderful sense of a relationship in a way that was like really open to what the professors were saying on
mhm.
more levels than just, this is my education and I'm going to get a good grade and then I'm going to go off and do something. There was a real how to call it, like a sense of a very great dedication on the part of the professors toward the students, and
Mm,
also just such a response from the students as
mm.
well.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. And was that the first time that you had visited Rome when you
it
went to
was.
university?
I had never been to Rome before, so
Wow.
that was
Yeah.
an experience.
Yeah. Your first taste of gelato and
Oh
actual
yeah,
coffee.
oh yeah. The
Awesome.
coffee in Rome is like nothing else in any place else.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've experienced that too. I've been a couple times, but really, it is unbelievable. Just the culture and the food and the spirit of Rome.
Yeah.
the Holy Father being there,
Yeah.
and all of the other beautiful things.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. We're taping
Amen.
this
Amen.
uh, just a
Yeah.
couple days after the Holy Father passed. Actually, one day passed
Wow.
yesterday. Um, so continuing to pray for him and the repose
Yeah.
of his soul there. Um, Great. Had you what are some of the characteristics that really stood out to you about your professors and or fellow students there at the university?
I think one of the things that was very striking for me was, again, the sisters had said, you have to find a director. If you're
Mm,
going to do a dissertation, you have to go and ask them if they want to do this.
wow.
And so I was looking at, who would I want to be my director? And I thought, oh, I don't know any of these people. And so I was over at the university, and Father Gall came up to me and said, I would like to be your director. And I was like, really? So it was, not maybe not in so many words. I don't remember exactly how he said it, but he was saying that to me,
Oh wow.
and so I that was I had never had anything. Well, I'd never done that before, but it was like, from what I'd heard from the other sisters, that was not what the way it is that it goes.
Mm.
You have to kind of go and beg the guys, will you take me on as but as the process went on, I thought, the poor man, it's like he's got me to deal with.
Oh,
So I say the man is a saint. He may
yeah.
not be in heaven yet, but
Yeah. Well, now he's actually the Catholic University of America,
oh,
um,
great.
teaching at there as a professor, as an adjunct. So um, that's incredible. What was your dissertation on?
My dissertation was on divine illumination. It was natural divine illumination in St. Thomas Aquinas's understanding, his theory of natural law.
Mm.
So it was a wonderful, wonderful. I loved the topic.
Wow, that's
So
great. That's amazing. Um, what kind of impact do you think your time at Santa Croce, the professors, the students, just sort of as a whole, has had on you in your life, and the other things that God has asked you to do throughout your life since then?
I think that I have such a sense of how blessed that time was.
Mm,
It's interesting because, when I went for the defense, I really didn't think I was going to pass. And not only did I pass, but I did well. And I just, ever since then, it's like the thought was, I didn't do that dissertation. The
mm,
Lord did all of that. But I think that it was because of, um, there was such uh, like a givenness on the part of, all of the men that were on the panel, all
mm,
the priests that were there. But also then it's like I was willing to work hard,
mm.
but it's like I don't really, I'm not an intelligent person per se. Nobody would ever tell me that, I should go on for a doctorate. I'm like, it's not for me.
That's
But it
I don't
was
know.
like,
That might be the
wow.
first time I heard a doctor say that they're not a very intelligent person.
Oh, yeah. But there is that, the gratitude that I have for the education that I received there, and
Mm,
just knowing people like that,
mm,
in education. I've always remembered that example. One of the things, and this may be something that's just generally done, but I would turn in my chapters, and Father would go through them very patiently. God bless him. And he would make comments, but the way he would do that sometimes was, I'd be reading my own writing, and all of a sudden in the text, there's something that I didn't write. And I'm like, and the experience was, it was like he was literally talking to me,
mm,
like soul to soul in a way,
mm,
which was, I thought, wow. So it's like that has stayed with me. And
mm,
so now when I give comments on students' papers, I try to do the same thing, because it's like to really communicate, the importance of why they're doing what they're doing.
mm.
Um, for what they're going to be called to do, whatever it is.
Wow.
If they don't stay in the seminary, if they go, get married or whatever it is the Lord calls them to, it's still important for them.
Yeah.
So,
That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful. How else did the time there sort of prepare you for what you're doing now, working with these young men there in the seminary?
I think one of the things is learning how to use time well.
Mm,
So that some of the obligations that we had just as a community over there really didn't allow too much time for study.
mm,
And so I heard this story from many of the sisters. They would talk about, they had an exam and they weren't able to prepare for the exam and they went in and the one question they prepared was the one on the exam.
oh
And it
wow.
was like the Lord just said, okay. So when it was time for me to begin to write, I never felt like I had enough time. I was like, please, to the sisters, can I have more time to study? And one of the sisters just said, there is no more time. Use the time you have. And so I started to write and I was amazed because it worked.
Mm,
So
yeah.
there's that, the experience of, and again, how patient Father was,
Mm,
and so then my second reader, Father Brock, was my second reader. And God bless him, the poor guy, because he's such an Aristotelian. And so, just really looks deeply into things. Well, I'm not. Okay. And I'm looking at it from Plato's standpoint, which eventually was like, Father just said, I can't do this. I'm like, oh no. But, it was a very good experience. I'm just really trusting that whatever is meant to happen will happen here,
mm.
and then just grateful because it was such a formative experience as well, you know.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Um, can you share an experience of how you're better equipped to dialogue with today's culture because of your time at Santa Croce? I know that that's something that Santa Croce really prides itself on, engaging with the culture, especially through communications and the way that they address theology and philosophy, preparing those students well to go out and engage the culture, be sort of in the world, as
Yeah.
Saint Josemaria would say. Yeah, so could you talk a little bit about that?
So I had a wonderful experience, and it was difficult, but it was wonderful at the same time. This would have been when I was teaching at Benedictine. I had a student who didn't know whether she was a man or woman. So she
Oh.
suffered from gender dysphoria.
Mm,
And she came to class, and her sister was also in the class. And so her sister had kind of told me a little bit about her. So the two of them came together in the next semester to the
mm,
class. And she came up to me after class and she said, I'm gay. And
wow.
I said, well, I had heard. But I said, in a way, it's like the Lord gave you, He made you, and He made you the way He made you. He gave you a certain suffering that you have,
Mm,
and He loves you. And you have great, I said, that there's the whole thing about human dignity is the big deal, in all the ideologies.
yeah.
And I said, you have such dignity because you are a child of God,
Mm,
and He loves you. Well, I was amazed. She stayed in class. I thought,
wow.
people could have just run
Yeah.
on that. But she talked about it much later. She was still suffering greatly, and she didn't want to go to church because she felt that somebody had told her that she was an abomination,
Hmm.
which really was a difficult thing for her to take. And I thought, oh my goodness, and so, but I had such a sense of being able to work with her through philosophy to be
Mm,
able to help her to start to think differently.
hmm,
Um, so I left there shortly after she did. So I haven't heard anything since then. But
mm.
you just plant the seeds and you just keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and that's just what the devil wants when he sort of puts it out there in front of people that they're not good enough, or they're not
Yeah.
loved, or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the church will never
Yeah.
accept you. But
Yeah.
really, everyone, from the greatest sinner in history to the greatest saint,
Yeah.
we're all children of God, one way or another. So really just being able to help them reestablish that understanding of our adopted sonship, or
Yeah.
daughters of God, as being something that's so profoundly beyond our understanding,
Yeah.
that whatever you know minimal separation we may feel, is never what God intends, never what God wants.
Yeah. One of the things I think, um, what I try to do, and I was doing this there as well, I really did focus a lot on ethics,
Mm,
just because there's not much of a sense of that in some sectors of society. And so I looked at it from the standpoint of the Passions of Aquinas,
mm,
and because I think that that's a key to being able to help people to work with their own difficulties that they have.
mm,
Because we can, these ones at Benedictine were very young, and so again, they had never heard any of this before. So it's like, um, you know, hopefully they'll hear it again and it'll start to sink in.
yeah.
But being able to say, no matter what you have, no matter what sufferings you have, you can start to have reason be in control, rather than thinking that you're just prey to, the world, things that happen in the world.
Mm.
Plus, not believing everything you see on the phone,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like we can come up, we have a gift of natural law in us,
Mhm.
and it's like that being able to say, I actually do know what the truth is here.
Mm.
There really is a truth and I do know it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very different than what TikTok preaches. Um, you're only as interesting as your number of likes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, staying grounded, in
Yeah.
something greater than ourselves
Yeah.
is infinitely important. Um, Tell me a little bit about how it was adjusting to your new home there in Rome. I assume that you lived at a convent, or with some other sisters.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
how was the adjustment of living there?
Well, I think the cultural adjustment was huge. There was a great assistance with that because three of us went up to Perugia for the like a course for a month in Italian, and so it gave me enough to be able to get around at the fruterias, and
Yeah,
go shopping. And
yeah, yeah.
um, but I do remember I had an experience. This man was asking me what zona I was from, and all I could think was he wants my money. And he looked at me like, uh. I thought, oh, shoot. So there was a lot of humility that was learned there as well.
Yeah.
But I
What?
loved the people. The Italian people are just beautiful people.
Mm,
There's something, and the laughter. I mean, they do have serious fights. I remember one night hearing one about midnight. I thought, ooh, somebody could get hurt in that one. But most of the time, there's a lot of camaraderie or something that
mm,
we don't see the same way of being in relation to one another here in the United States.
mm.
Um, but there was a lot of there was quite an adjustment there.
What kind of things did you do for fun?
For fun. We went on Gitas a lot. We went out. So we would go to, well, the other thing we would do, of course, we would go out for gelato. Now that was fun. But we would go up to, we went up to Loreto one time. We went to Aquino.
Mm,
We went several places. We had a retreat one time down in Sorrento. There's a beautiful Benedictine monastery down there, and
mm.
it overlooks the Isle of Capri. I mean, it's like it was really. it was amazing.
Oh, yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there's so many places to see. Europe is so small. Being able to travel to even other countries
I know.
around Italy,
Yeah,
it's an incredible experience. And I mean, the richness of Fra Angelico, for example, down in Florence, and the Duomo, and
yeah,
going out to Cinque Terre, the islands there.
yeah,
Or Assisi. But even being able to visit some of those other places, being in Europe, you're so close to everything that's there around
yeah,
you. So it's
yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. The experience there too was like every day is an adventure,
Mm.
and it was like there was something new to learn, each day. So it was
Oh, that's
great.
incredible. What about friends and family? Did any friends or family come to visit you while you were there?
Actually, my family really did not. I think it
Okay.
was too far for them.
Mm.
Our mother general would come quite often, and she is such a wonderful, wonderful person. And so that was always a great. We looked forward to that so much. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, and I know that being there in Rome, I remember when I was there just on a study abroad. We lived in Austria,
wow,
but being able to, you know, felt like you knew all of the places where you were visiting. So if somebody did come to visit, it was like, oh, look, let me show you this and that
uh,
and the other things.
it's
You
true.
feel
Yeah.
like some sort of a tour guide, which was really uh, you know, um, really wonderful to show people around and to show people.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to someone who's considering supporting Santa Croce, funding a student's education, supporting the university in general, some research project? What would you say to a donor who was thinking about
I would
supporting?
say it's a very worthwhile thing to do. Just in the sense of the formation of those students to be able to go out into the world. From my own experience, so again, I mean, I'm grateful for the education that I received there. Um, and it's wonderful to be able to, to speak in a setting like this, to be able to just say that, that I'm so grateful
Mm,
for what that experience has given. Um, so I would say definitely.
beautiful, beautiful. What um, what was the best meal you ever ate in Rome?
Oh, there were several. I think my favorite meal is pizza.
Okay.
So the pizza and the coffee. I mean, that was like, the ottimo.
Bene, bene.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Um, yeah, and what about your relationship with the Lord, and sort of your, I guess, love even of the church? How did that grow while you were there in Rome at Santa Croce?
Do you know, it was interesting because as a child, I grew up in a very Protestant town,
Mm,
and I always had the sense that I was fighting for my faith. There was always a battle going on, like interiorly. It wasn't even anything outside.
mm,
And I remember the experience when I first got to Rome, and it continued all the way through the time I was there. I'm at home.
mm,
It was such as it was, and it was like there was no fight going on in that same interior way. I mean, there were all kinds of crazy things. You'd see the buses go by with these in the aprons on the corner, and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
whoa, I don't think I'm gonna go there.
yeah.
But the experience of being at home in
Mm,
the heart of the church was such an amazing grounding experience, I think. And so, the combination of the way that the people were at Santa Croce, that warmth,
mm,
um, and that experience of being at home, I think has always stayed with me after that, because it's like it doesn't matter where I go, I am at home,
mm.
interiorly now, you know. I can
That's
fight all
beautiful.
those fights. And it's like, hey, I have philosophy now.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
The Lord has strengthened my arm to bear the heavy bow.
Well, Sister Mary Katerina, this has been exceptional and really wonderful to meet you. And I hope that we get the chance to meet in person maybe next year when I come down for the Theology a Gift conference.
That'd be
Um,
great.
but yeah, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think again, just thank you. That to Santa Croce, really, and just to say it's a wonderful experience to be there. So for anyone who is looking toward going into some, any of those fields, philosophy, theology, I would say it's well worth it.
Mm,
So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciated meeting you, and may God continue to bless your work there at the seminary with those wonderful
thank
young men.
you. May he bless you as well in what you're doing.
Thank you, sister.